So I'm going to talk you through this Miro board, which is about how to structure and design a good workshop. This Miro board is available on Miroverse. I'll share the link in the comments. And as well as a bit of information, there's lots of templates in here which will help you structure a really good workshop, particularly if you're trying to solve problems. And so let me start with some basics. This comes from a fantastic book, Brainstorming, which I've been using for years to help come up with workshop ideas. But the really basic principles of structuring a workshop are here. So we obviously need to think about what our target state's going to be, where we want to get to, what does success look like, what are we trying to achieve, what do we want to feel when we come out of this workshop, what does good look like, all of that stuff, have that really clear and make sure that everybody understands that at the beginning. We also need to think about where we are now, who's on the team, what resources do we have, who needs to come along, who are the right people to come along, and we need to make the agenda clear so that we can maximise the use of everybody's time. And what's really useful about understanding a workshop structure is that it must have these elements. There's the divergent part where we're exploring, gathering, brainstorming, gathering all the different collective intelligence of the room, making sure that everybody is heard and participates, hearing all the ideas. Then the middle bit is the exploring, the wrestling with it, the grouping, finding the themes, examining what's there, lots of discussion. And then we must go into this divergent closing phase where we conclude, make decisions, make meaning out of what we've just looked at, take some actions. So we've got this analysis and synthesis. All too often we're pretty good at the first bit, particularly in our kind of agile retrospectives, and we tend to be pretty rubbish at the second bit. So you might have experienced being in retrospectives and hearing everybody's ideas, and then you get into the discussion and the time runs out, and you end up week after week repeating the same kind of meeting, having the same modes, but never actually getting to the part where you take something forward. So these different sections are really important. For me, the magic really happens in the middle, in that sort of exploring emergent place. It can also be known as the groan zone, where people can get tired, or there can be conflict, or things can feel a bit difficult. So that's often something good to call out at the beginning. And workshops should be made of these diamond structures. So sometimes you might have one of these diamond structures, sometimes you might have many. And actually, in a typical workshop that I would run, you tend to have two of these diamonds, because we often are looking at the problem space and the solution space. You might even have three of these diamonds as you kind of move through a set of objectives. Certainly in product development, working with product teams, we can get too quickly jump into the solution, whereas there's a lot of benefit in exploring the problem space. And so one of the things that comes from AJ&Smart, who are famous for design sprints and being workshop experts, are these 4 C's, which help you structure a workshop, which are called collect, choose, create, and commit. And I've sort of superimposed those things onto this double diamond, which is often associated with design thinking. So some more principles: we want to start a workshop strong, make sure everybody feels included, make it a nice, comfortable space, let people know what to expect, warm people up gently. You might have heard of somebody called Jan Keck, who has got some wonderful ideas about how to warm people up gently without having the ick factor or without making people feel uncomfortable. So there's all sorts of methods that you can start to set the scene for participation, get people involved, let them know what to expect, set the ground rules, etc. We also want to end strongly so that people remember the workshop. We want to finish on time. We want to finish with some actions and having achieved our outcome. And as a facilitator, we've got this structure firmly in mind, with also a great deal of flexibility and adaptability, so that we can kind of flex our way through, but make sure that we come out with some key actions. So these double diamonds, I'm gonna just explore these different phases with you briefly: collect, choose, create, commit, and demonstrate how that might work in a typical workshop. Okay, so here we go. I'll zoom in a bit here. And of course you can read through this in your own time when you get the board from Miroverse. So I just mentioned some of these things. Opening, setting the ground rules, setting the scene, expectations, connect and warm up. Talk to people in advance if you need to, especially key stakeholders. Figure out who the decision makers are if you have them. Then we're into this, normally into this collect phase. So this is about gathering information, brainstorming. We're quite familiar with this in agile and product development practices. So our typical retrospective might be using some enabling constraints, and these might be our different retrospective heuristics to help serve as thinking prompts. Enabling constraints help us be more creative if you put some criteria in there to help our brains work around a set of particular themes. And we want to visualize, because we know that capturing the information as we go along is really important. As a facilitator, you're trying to guide the group rather than be an expert. I could talk about facilitation for a long time. I'll try not to do that now. And you want to silently brainstorm thoughts. Sometimes silence is important, just a little bit of silence to help make sure everybody's had time to think. You don't want to exclude the people who need longer to think. Time box the activity so people can see how long they have. Sequence discussions, which means hearing from one person at a time. Give clear instructions multiple times with examples so that they know what they're doing. And I've just included then some templates here. What's really important as part of this collect phase is that you're moving into a choose phase. So when we say choose, this is about, you're gathering the themes, and then as a group, you're going to help decide which parts of all of those themes you're going to pursue. So that's going to involve clustering ideas together, hearing what people have to say about those ideas, but then deciding together which ones are you going to take forward. And this is really important as a facilitator. You're thinking about this depending on how much information you get coming out of the collect phase. You might decide to introduce some voting even before you've discussed everything, to make sure that you're always talking about the most important thing perceived by the group. So most of these examples that I'm about to show you include collect and choose, because there's, you're going to gather information and then around some constraints, and then do some voting. So you might have seen sailboat. The heuristics here are about thinking about what drove you forward, what held you back, where you should be heading. So this is a typical retrospective template. You might give people 10 or 12 minutes to silently brainstorm their ideas, and then you might give everybody maybe five voting bananas to attach to their different ideas. And of course, depending on what your tool you're using, you can make that process an autonomous one, so that people can have that degree of anonymity. Anonymous one, sorry, not autonomous one. Racing car is very similar. Instead of where we're heading, you've got these extra heuristics of what were the unforeseen issues. So you're kind of looking backwards and forwards with this one. Susie Starfish, one of my favourites. Simple as anything. What should we start doing, stop doing, keep doing, do more of? liked, lacked, learned. Similarly, just there's so many of these. You can go and find them yourself. I've included this fishbone analysis because sometimes you're getting into this part of the process and you find something which is a little bit thorny and you need to dig into it a little bit more. And so this fishbone analysis, which is as old as the hills, can help you think about what the problem is, come up with a problem statement, and just dig into the causes of those problems using whatever different categories that you like. And that might just help you unpack something that's come up which is a bit gnarly. And the other thing I like to use is this circles and soup. So sometimes in a retrospective you'll find that there's a lot of stuff coming from the group which you can do very little about, and it's taking over the discussion and it's demotivating everybody. And so what you can do is take things from one of the earlier boards and think about where they fit in the circle of influence. So what things can the team action, what things can the team influence, and which things do we just need to make note of that we can't really do anything about. So these things all in the collect and choose phase can help you look at the concerns that you've got or explore the problem domain that you're in and start to define the problems that you're seeing. So that's the first two. So then we're thinking about ideating. We're thinking about, okay, so we've gathered the problems, we've explored some of the challenges. How do we solve these things? What options do we have? And so this is the real ideation part, where you might use all sorts of different rich ideation techniques. Depending on the challenge, it might need to be really, really creative. And so this typically starts by reframing the problem that you've been discussing. Often we miss this part. So if we just go back to the double diamond, we've explored all the different challenges and we've sort of defined the problem that we're facing. And now we're about to explore the solutions, the ideas that might help us with that before we narrow down on the next steps. And this might not all be one workshop. This might be something that happens over a number of different sessions. And so the techniques that I've included in here for this ideation, this creation part, you can read in your own time the different details here. But this is where we use reframing techniques like how might we, which is a really powerful tool to turn challenges into opportunities. And then the opportunities themselves, the ideas, you might capture as we can. So I tend to take 3 or 4 key challenges that we've framed into how might we problems into this next phase for us to explore as a group. And you might break out into different breakout sessions tackling different questions, or you might still doing it as a whole team. So now again you're expansively thinking about how you might resolve those challenges and discussing them and getting that collective intelligence for the group in terms of solving the problems. And so there's the typical how might we. Brainwriting is a really nice technique which is particularly inclusive because it's something that you do silently. And this is where you frame the how might we, and then individually you start to sort of chain a story about your idea. So you might contribute with the we can idea, and then a number of the different team members will elaborate, extend your idea with their own thoughts, which can come up with some quite powerful solutions. So you can see here's a template for that. I would fill my name in here and my idea, and then I'd wait to see which other idea I could build on and go and fill in and add to the story. Yes and is quite useful for that because it keeps everything positive. And again, coming out of that, you might do some voting to notice the ideas where there was most support or the most curiosity to explore. So that's brainwriting. You might use something very visual in terms of storytelling to express an idea with some clarity. This can be really useful if you're thinking about technical solutions to things and you want to be able to express them visually. So that's the comic concept. And there's loads of these, and you'll have your own, and you can find loads of them online, but it's just really useful to notice which part of this process that those particular techniques are trying to help you with. So once we've gathered some more ideas, and these are solutions, let's just look back at the double diamond. We're then trying to make some choices and get some clarity so that we can turn the things that we've been discussing into work. So turning stuff into work. And this is where we want to narrow down ideas, think about how actionable they are, think about value, complexity, break things down into smaller chunks, extract hypotheses, clarify actions, etc. And so these templates that I've put in here help you do that. The working through blockers template is really nice when you're trying to think, okay, what's next? What things can we just get on with out of these ideas that we've had? Which things can we just get on with? Which things do we need permission to go and do? Which things do we need to get a bit creative with? Which decisions that we need to make? So this one's really useful for sort of getting started and thinking about what to do next. And again, there's going to be the voting process to sort of turn those things into really clear actions. The action board. So this might be a way of taking those ideas and figuring out, okay, which ones are sort of small and high impact that we can go and do next. Which ones might we need to unpack and turn into bigger initiatives? Which ones should we just stick on the backlog, and which ones should we just probably forget about for now? So this is going to help again. You're almost constantly doing this divergent and convergent thinking to navigate your way so that you're always discussing the most valuable things. What else do I have in there? Who, what, when is just a nice thing to have in terms of, okay, we've had the ideas, what are we actually going to do? So that can be nice. It can be nice also to put things on a mythical timeline: now, next, later. So those are just a few templates that you might use for a workshop to go through this double diamond. If you were having a retrospective, you could probably grab something from each of those columns and have a really well structured problem solving or retrospective type of activity. So I hope you find that useful. And then of course, to close, we want to make sure that the main points have been summarised, that somebody's capturing this information, recognise the progress that you've made compared to where you were at the beginning, celebrate the contributions from the room, maybe do something that is a nice big hooray at the end in terms of appreciating the group, and make sure that you go get some feedback. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through my Miro board. Please go find it in Miroverse, and then you can download it and you can just copy and paste whichever bits of this template that you think are useful. And really keen to have your feedback. Thank you.